In a kingdom where witches burn and wolves rule, a servant girl hides her cursed blood beneath chains of silence. But when she saves her master, the Alpha King himself, her forbidden magic binds them in a single heartbeat. Now his veins burn with witchfire. Her soul trembles with his hunger. Together, they are the prophecy that could end their world, or set it ablaze. Chapter 1. Tamsin Vale pressed her palms against the freezing basin, scrubbing the Alpha King's blood from his cloak. Her fingers burned, like the memory of magic she wasn't supposed to have. Because witches who were caught didn't just die, they were hunted. And yet, beneath the harsh clang of armor and the wolves' growls echoing in the halls, she whispered the smallest word of power. Just one. Ease. A shimmer pulsed through her hands, invisible to all but her heart. The ache in her cracked fingers dulled. The wound on her wrist, the one from the overseer's lash, sealed itself as if kissed by warmth. She exhaled softly. Relief, guilt, fear, all at once. Before she could move, a voice cut through the corridor like a blade. Tamsin, the Alpha's chamber, now. Her heart jumped. Still, she wiped her hands on her skirt, bowed her head, and stepped into the torch-lit passage. The keep was alive with breath and dominance. Wolves stalked its halls, soldiers with eyes like embers and hearts like storms. Every shadow carried a threat. Every glance reminded her what she was. Property. And yet, as she passed the training courtyard, she slowed. A group of witches huddled near the fence, their collars glowing faintly blue. Binding spells. Children, no older than 10. Tamsin's chest tightened. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't ignore them. That's why she hid. That's why she survived. Because someone had to protect them. Before the words left her lips, she whispered another spell under her breath, letting a flicker of warmth dance through the air toward the shivering girls. Their trembling eased. "Move along, girl," the overseer barked, shoving her forward. She stumbled, bit her tongue, and kept walking. What's worse, she'd been summoned by the Alpha King himself. No servant came back the same from his chamber. Some didn't come back at all. By the time she reached the upper levels, the scent of blood and smoke had grown thick. Cale Draven had returned from battle. The Iron Fang himself, the Alpha King who'd conquered 5 packs before his 20th year. Rumor said he'd killed his father with his bare hands. The guards opened the doors, and just like that, her world tilted. He sat on the edge of his throne, armor shattered, silver hair dark with blood. His chest rose and fell unevenly, claws half-shifted. Eyes like molten amber flicked to her, piercing, unreadable. "Who sent you?" His voice was gravel in command. Tamsin dropped to her knees instantly. "My lord, I was ordered to tend your wounds." He stared at her for a long, unbearable moment. Then, "Everyone, out." The room emptied in seconds. Her breath caught as the doors slammed shut. Silence roared. Kyle leaned back against the throne, groaning low as he peeled off his gauntlets. The scent of his blood hit her again. Wolf blood, ancient and alive, laced with something darker. Without thinking, she stepped closer. "You're hurt, my lord." "Stay back," he growled. "I heal fast enough." But his hand trembled as he tried to stand. Maybe it was fate, or maybe madness, but she reached for him anyway. "Please, let me help." Under the weight of his stare, her pulse raced. Her wolf wasn't real, but the fear was. Still, her hands moved on instinct, touching his shoulder. Heat seared through her skin, wild and wrong and magnetic. "Who are you?" His voice softened, dangerously. She lied without blinking. "Just a servant, my lord." Yet her magic hummed beneath the lie, betraying her truth. Cale's gaze darkened. "You smell like rain, and something else." She froze. Before either could speak, a distant horn echoed through the keep. A victory call. Wolves howled in unison outside. Cale looked away, breaking the spell between them. Leave me." Her chest ached at the command, but she obeyed. As she turned, his voice followed, low and rough. "What's your name?" "Tamsin," she whispered. He repeated it like a vow. "Tamsin." And in the echo of his voice, something ancient stirred. That night, the keep burned. Thunder rolled across the mountains as the storm howled through the towers. Tamsin lay awake in the servants' quarters, the mark on her wrist throbbing like a warning. Without warning, a scream tore through the halls. She bolted upright. Smoke filled the corridor. Wolves shouted. The air crackled. Witch fire. Someone had cursed the Alpha. Her feet moved before thought. She ran. By the time she reached his chamber, chaos reigned. Guards lay writhing on the floor, veins blackening with dark magic. Cale himself was on his knees, gasping, clutching his chest as violet light crawled beneath his skin. A witch's curse. Fatal. Unstoppable. And yet, she didn't hesitate. Her body moved on instinct. She knelt beside him, hands trembling as she pressed them to his heart. "No, no, no," she whispered. "Stay with me." The curse hissed back, searing her palms. "Stop," he rasped, eyes blazing. "You'll die." "I don't care." Magic burst from her like wildfire, ancient and defiant. The air thickened. Time stood still. Silver light surged between them, threads of energy lacing through flesh and soul. His claws dug into the floor. Her scream echoed off the walls. Then, silence. Smoke cleared. Cale's heartbeat steadied. The curse dissolved. But the light didn't fade. It pulsed. Once, twice. Then sank into both of them. She gasped. He shuddered. And just like that, everything changed. When his eyes opened, they glowed not gold, but silver. Her magic burned in his veins. "Tamsin." His voice was a growl, a prayer, a promise. She stumbled back, breathless. What did I do?" He rose slowly, towering over her. "You bound us." The mark on her wrist flared. 2 souls, 1 pulse. Her wolfless heart trembled under the weight of it. Between one breath and the next, their bond pulsed, and the world narrowed to just them. Outside, thunder crashed again, sealing their fate, and beneath the moonlight the witch bond was born. Chapter 2. The Catalyst. At dawn, the keep rang with fury. The Wolf Council gathered in the frost-caked hall, their cloaks heavy with authority, their voices sharp as blades. "She used forbidden magic," snarled Lord Varen. "A witch among wolves! Death is the law!" Tamsin stood at the center of the hall, wrists bound, her pale face calm despite the fear clawing her throat. The wolves' eyes burned with centuries of hatred. She could feel the pulse of Cale's heartbeat inside her own, steady but strained, proof that their fates were now fused. On the dais, Cale sat like a statue carved from stormlight and iron. The curse still flickered in his veins, traces of her power shimmering beneath his skin. He was silent, unreadable, but the scent of his turmoil filled the room. Smoke, steel, and something primal. "The witch dies," Varen repeated, slamming his staff. "By the decree of the council." "Enough!" Kyle's voice cut through the hall like thunder. Every head turned. He rose slowly, every movement steeped in command. "She will not die," he said. "She will serve." "Serve?" Varen spat. "The law demands—" "I am the law." The hall went still. No wolf dared to meet his gaze. Kyle descended the dais, his boots echoing on the stone floor until he stood before her. His eyes met hers, molten gold against storm gray. "You are mine now, witch," he said quietly. "By blood, by magic, by consequence." Tamsin's breath hitched. "You're binding me," she whispered. "To save your pride, to save your life." Their bond flared, a phantom heat between them, thrumming beneath their skin like an unspoken vow. That night, the keep whispered. Wolves murmured that the Alpha had been cursed, that witchfire had infected his soul. They watched Tamsin pass through the halls with wary eyes, Her servant's dress exchanged for a healer's robes of black and ash, Kyle kept her close. Too close. She now slept in the healer's quarters adjoining his chambers, a gilded cage with walls that seemed to breathe with his presence. When she tried to reach beyond the keep's gates, the bond tightened, dragging her breath away until she returned. He had chained her not with iron, but with magic itself. Yet at night, when the moon rose and the keep slept, she could feel his turmoil through the tether, his nightmares, his pain. Each emotion bled into her, raw and unguarded. Once, she woke gasping, her body slick with sweat and tears that weren't hers. Through the open door, she saw him standing at the window, shirtless, hands gripping the stone ledge, breath ragged. The mark of her spell pulsed faintly across his chest, a sigil shaped like her heartbeat. "You feel it too," she said softly. He didn't turn. "You made me feel it. It wasn't by choice. Nothing about this is." Their words hung heavy, brittle with resentment and something darker, a tether neither could break. Days turned to weeks. The bond deepened. Kyle began to sense her thoughts before she spoke. When anger flared in her, his own pulse spiked. When fear coiled in her chest, his instincts roared to protect. It infuriated him. It terrified her. Yet despite it, their strange proximity grew into something else. An understanding carved from shared isolation. Tamsin began tending to his wounds not just as healer, but as confidant. He taught her the silent language of the wolves: dominance, respect, survival. She, in turn, began to teach him restraint, how to quiet the witch fire that flared within him. It became ritual. Every night, he would sit, bare-chested, as she placed her hands against his heart and drew the excess energy from his veins. "Breathe," she'd whisper. "Let it flow through you." "You're enjoying this," he'd growl. "You wish I were." And yet, he did. Her touch, cold and forbidden, burned hotter than flame. The air between them grew heavier with every session until restraint itself became agony. But the keep was never without eyes. The Wolf Council watched from the shadows, their patience fraying. The whispers grew. "She's cursed him. She commands his will. The Alpha is bewitched." Kale ignored them, until one night, a spy brought him proof. A young witch, caught in the lower cells, healed with forbidden magic. Tamsin's work. He stormed into her quarters, fury like a tempest barely contained. "You healed her! She was a child. You risked everything. For someone, Kale. Something you've forgotten how to be." The air crackled, power against dominance. His wolf eyes gleamed gold. Her magic shimmered blue. "Do you think I wanted this?" she hissed. "To be tied to a creature who only knows how to command? And you think I wanted you in my veins?" His voice broke. "Every thought you have, every fear, you live inside me, witch." The silence after was unbearable. She turned away, shaking. "Then kill me," she whispered. "End it. You'll be free." He reached her in 2 strides, his hand gripping her chin. His voice dropped to a rasp. "I can't." Their lips hovered. Too close, too dangerous. For one suspended breath, they both leaned in, the bond trembling between them like a living thing. Then he tore away. "You'll stay," he said hoarsely. "But if you disobey me again, I won't save you." Later that night, Tamsin wakes in darkness, heart pounding, breath hitching. She feels him through the bond, pacing, restless, conflicted. And then she feels something else, his pain, his regret, his buried tenderness that he would never show her. She realizes it's not just her chained to him. He's bound too. 2 halves of a curse neither of them chose. And yet, the longer it burns, the more it feels like destiny. Chapter 3. New Reality. Dawn crawled over Ironfang Keep like a reluctant confession. The frost clung to the battlements, and the courtyard below hummed with restless energy. Wolves preparing for another patrol, unaware their king was slowly unraveling. Inside the Alpha's private chamber, Cale Draven stood shirtless before the mirror, staring at the mark seared into his chest. The sigil of the witch bond, faintly pulsing like a second heart. The lines glowed with an unnatural blue, webbing out across his collarbone like veins of ice. He could feel her even now. The rhythm of her breath, the flicker of her thoughts, the scent of her fear every time someone passed too close. It was unbearable, intimate, consuming. You did this to me, he thought. But deep down, another voice, softer, unwelcome, whispered back. No, you saved me. Tamsin woke with a start in the adjoining healer's quarters. The world felt heavier than before. The bond hummed faintly under her skin like a thread pulling her toward the chamber beyond the door. Every pulse from him echoed in her chest. She pressed her hand against her heart, whispering, "You're not mine, you're not mine." But the bond didn't care. It answered with a slow, steady thrum. Mine. When the guards brought her to Cale's war room that morning, she walked like someone balancing between life and execution. Cale stood at the map table, surrounded by his lieutenants. The light caught the sharp angles of his face, too beautiful, too severe. His gaze flicked to her, and she felt the air shift. The council wants to test the bond, Varen said. They believe the witch's influence weakens you. Cale's jaw clenched. Tell the council I don't take orders from fear, but leave us. The room emptied, the heavy door shutting behind them. Tamsin stood at the far end, spine straight, eyes wary. You shouldn't have defied them, she said. They'll turn on you. Let them try. He crossed the distance between them, stopping just close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin. Do you know what this bond does, witch? It chains us, she whispered. It changes us, he corrected softly. You feel me. My pain, my rage, my hunger. I feel yours. His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed her jaw, light as a tremor. She froze. This isn't control, he said, voice low. This is something worse. Her pulse fluttered, and the bond responded, a surge of shared heat that made both of them step back. That night, Cale ordered her to join him in the private training hall, a vast stone chamber lit by torchlight, empty save for the sound of their breaths. You will teach me to suppress the witch fire, he said, before it consumes me. You're asking me to teach you to control a power you were born to hate. I'm not asking. She almost smiled. No, you never do. Their lessons began. At first, it was torture, Cale trying to harness what was never meant for wolves, and Tamsin forced to channel her magic through him without losing herself. When his control faltered, the air would spark, blue energy dancing between them, heat rippling through the space. Hours passed, sweat beading along his neck, her fingers trembling where they touched his skin. Breathe, she murmured, her palms over his chest. Feel it flow, not fight. You sound like you enjoy tormenting me. I enjoy surviving. The witchfire flared. For a moment, it felt like the world tilted, like their hearts were one single beat. His hand caught hers, fingers lacing instinctively. Her breath hitched. The bond pulsed. Deeper, stronger. Then he let go, stepping back as if burned. Enough for tonight. But neither of them slept. Days bled into weeks. The bond began to change them in ways neither expected. When Cale raged, her power flared. When she wept, the scent of rain followed him for hours. They could no longer lie. Every false word carried a pulse of pain through the tether. Yet something else grew in the cracks. Trust. Cale began to confide in her. His mother's death, the burden of ruling a kingdom that worshipped fear. I was 15 when the council told me to kill her, he said one night. They said she was tainted by witch blood. I obeyed. and ever since I've wondered if they were right." Tamsin's voice was barely a whisper. They were never right. She reached for him, not in pity, but in understanding. His hand closed over hers, rough and trembling. For the first time, the bond pulsed not in pain, but in comfort. But peace never lasted long in Ironfang Keep. One morning, Cale was called before the council. A witch child had been found in the servant quarters, healed, marked with the same sigil that burned across Cale's chest. Tamsin's doing. Cale returned to the keep with blood on his knuckles and fury in his eyes. He found her in the infirmary, tending to another wounded servant. "You disobeyed me," he said, voice trembling with quiet rage. "I saved her," she said simply. "You endangered yourself and me. Maybe I'm tired of hiding what I am." The silence between them was a knife's edge. Then, before she could blink, he grabbed her wrist and dragged her into the training chamber, slamming the door behind them. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yes," she spat. "I reminded them that witches still bleed, and heal, and live. And now they'll come for you, for us. Then stop pretending you don't care." The words hit harder than any slap. His breath came ragged. He stepped closer, towering over her, eyes blazing gold. "You think I don't care?" His hand cupped the back of her neck, pulling her toward him, breath mingling, every heartbeat shared through the bond, a storm of fury, fear, and forbidden want. "You are a curse," he murmured. "Then why do you look at me like I'm salvation?" For a heartbeat, the world held still. He could have kissed her. She could have let him, but instead, he turned away, the sound of his restraint heavier than any chain. "You'll stay confined to these chambers," he said, "until I decide what to do with you. You already have." Her whisper followed him out, soft as witchfire, the truth neither dared to face. That night, Kyle stood alone in the snow, watching the keep's torches flicker in the dark. In the distance, wolves howled, not in loyalty, but in warning. Inside, Tamsin knelt by the window, feeling the bond tremble. His heartbeat pounded inside her chest, echoing with something she couldn't name. They were no longer captor and captive, no longer king and servant. Something new was being born, fragile, dangerous, unstoppable. The witch bond was no curse anymore. It was a beginning. Chapter 4. The nights in Ironfang Keep had grown strange. The moon hung red and swollen over the battlements, and the wolves whispered of omens, of magic rising in their alpha's halls. Behind the fortress doors, Cale and Tamsin danced on the edge of ruin. Their lessons had become nightly rituals, an exchange of power, sweat, and restraint. He would sit bare-chested in the circle of sigils she drew on the floor, the witchfire tracing patterns along his skin as she murmured incantations under her breath. The bond thrummed between them like a living pulse. Each spell demanded touch. Each failure left their hearts beating in synchrony, ragged and breathless. "Again," he would growl. "You're pushing too far," she would whisper. "Then pull me back." And she always did, until the moment came when neither of them wanted to. One night, the lesson shifted. The magic flared wild, their connection burning too bright. Tamsin staggered, her palms on his chest, her breath tangled with his. The sigils seared gold, and the air between them sizzled like lightning. Cale caught her by the waist, pulling her close to steady her. The heat that passed between them wasn't just magic. "You're trembling," he said, his voice low. "So are you. Tell me to stop." "You wouldn't." Her words broke something in him. The kiss that followed was inevitable, fierce, desperate, all the unspoken pain and longing that had been coiled inside them since the night the bond ignited. The witchfire answered, flooding the chamber in blue light. When they broke apart, both were panting, eyes wide, terrified of what they'd unleashed. "We can't," she whispered. "We already did." But even as passion tangled them tighter, the outside world began to crack. Whispers spread through the keep. The Alpha is bewitched. The Iron Fang has gone soft. The council's emissaries came more frequently now, cloaked in silver, their eyes sharp with suspicion. They demanded proof of loyalty. They demanded blood. Kyle played their game in daylight, cold, composed, the perfect ruler. But at night he was different. He came to her chamber, restless, haunted, his control fraying. "They think you control me," he said once, pacing before her. "Do I?" she asked softly. He stopped. His golden eyes met hers. "Yes, and that terrifies me." Their bond deepened, evolving into something neither of them understood. When Kale's temper flared, Tamsin's heartbeat spiked. When she wept, the scent of rain followed him. The walls between them were gone, and it made them both powerful and perilous. She began to see flashes of his mind when they touched. A wolf chained to his own throne, blood on his hands, and a voice that whispered from the darkness, "You will destroy everything you love." And Kale began to dream of her, the witch crowned in moonlight, surrounded by fire, her eyes brighter than the stars. Then came the midpoint. It began with a name. During a secret interrogation of a captured witch spy, the council uncovered something Kale never expected to hear. "The girl you protect is no servant," the spy spat, laughing through bloodied lips. "She's the witch-born heir, the last daughter of the Moonline, the lost queen of our kind." Kyle froze. Every instinct screamed to deny it, but deep in his bond with her, he felt the truth blaze alive. Tamsin, his witch, his curse, his salvation. And now, the key to everything the council feared. He confronted her that night, in the garden beneath the blood moon. "Tell me it isn't true," he demanded. "If I do, you'll feel the lie," she whispered. Silence. The truth burned between them like fire and frost. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to live, Kale. Not rule, not lead, just live." "You were never meant to hide," he said. "You were meant to burn." Her eyes shone with something between fury and heartbreak. "And you were meant to kill me. Isn't that how this story ends?" But Kale didn't answer with words. He stepped closer, pressed his forehead to hers, and whispered, "Not this time." Their hearts pounded in unison, the bond sparking gold now. No longer curse or control, but choice. The following dawn, the council struck back. They branded Tamsin a traitor, a seductress, a witch queen reborn to overthrow Wolfkind. They summoned Kale to pass judgment. In the great hall, the council stood in their silver armor, their voices echoing like hammers against stone. "The law is clear. Magic of royal blood is death." Kale stood beside Tamsin, his expression unreadable. Every wolf eye was on him. "And if I refuse?" "Then the keep burns," said the High Inquisitor, "and your throne with it." The chamber held its breath. Kale turned to her, to the woman who had saved him, cursed him, changed him. "Then let it burn," he said. His claws flashed, his power erupted, and the hall descended into chaos. Wolves turned against wolves, steel clashed with witchfire. Tamsin's magic flared through the keep like a heartbeat unleashed. When it was over, the banners of the council lay in flames, and Kale stood beside her, bloodied but alive. "We can't stay," she said, shaking. "Then we run," he answered, and together they fled into the frozen night, a fallen alpha and a witch queen bound by destiny and desire. As the keep burned behind them, Tamsin looked back only once. The sky was red with fire and vengeance. Kyle took her hand. Their bond pulsed once, strong and clear. Not curse, not command, but vow. "No more chains," she whispered. "No more thrones," he replied. "Only us." And the night swallowed them whole. Chapter 5. The Point of No Return. The world beyond Ironfang Keep was colder than either of them remembered. Snow fell in sheets across the mountain pass, and the wind howled like a warning. For weeks, Kale and Tamsin disappeared into myth. The Alpha King and the Witch Queen vanished without a trace. The council called them traitors. The rogues called them legends. They found refuge in the ruins of Hollowspire, a shattered citadel buried in forest fog, once sacred to both witches and wolves before the wars divided them. There, the bond between them grew into something more dangerous than desire. Each morning, Cale trained with her, testing the balance of their powers, his strength against her spellcraft. Each night, they studied the markings that had begun to appear on their skin, matching sigils that pulsed with shared magic. It wasn't just a bond anymore. It was emerging. "You're changing me," Kyle murmured one night, tracing the glow along his collarbone. "No," she whispered, brushing her lips over it. "We're changing each other." When he kissed her then, the forest itself seemed to shudder, the air alive with the energy of something ancient being reborn. But peace was a lie. The council was hunting them, and the mark that united them was also their beacon. Every time they used the bond, it sent a pulse across the realm. Magic like theirs couldn't stay hidden forever. One morning, a raven arrived at Hollowspire. Its wings were scorched black, its eyes burned white. It carried a message sealed with silver. "Surrender the Witch Queen, or every pack that ever swore to the Iron Fang dies." Kel crushed the seal in his hand, silver slicing into his palm. Blood dripped down his wrist, but he didn't feel it. He looked at Tamsin, and for the first time, she saw the weight of what it meant to love a king. "If you go back," she said, "you'll die." "If I stay," he answered, "they'll slaughter everyone I ever protected. You can't save them and save me. Watch me try." That night, while she slept, Kyle did what he always swore he wouldn't. He left. He left her a note written in the only words that mattered. "You saved me once. Now it's my turn." By dawn, he was gone. When Tamsin woke, the bond screamed. She felt the echo of his pain, his fight, his capture, all in waves of agony that left her gasping in the snow. She followed it. Through forests and ruins, through rivers that ran black with ash. Each pulse of the bond led her closer to the council's stronghold, and closer to the power she had buried all her life. Inside the fortress of Silverreach, Cale was chained before the council. His magic was suppressed, his body broken, but his spirit, his defiance, burned brighter than ever. "You could have ruled," the High Inquisitor said. "Instead, you chose a witch." "I chose my equal." The Inquisitor smiled coldly. "Then you'll die like her." They dragged him to the courtyard, bound to a pyre made of ironwood. Above, the moon was full, and red again. The Inquisitor raised his blade. "Let the curse end with you, Alpha King." But the curse didn't end. It awoke. The moment the blade struck the pyre, the bond exploded. Across the mountains, in a storm of fire and frost, Tamsin arrived. Her magic tore through the night, a storm of white light and black flame. The guards fell to their knees as she descended through the smoke, her eyes glowing with the power of her lineage, the witch-born queen. "Release him," she commanded, "or burn with your sins." The Inquisitor laughed. "You're too late. The fire's already lit." She looked at Kyle, at the man who had risked everything for her. Then she stepped into the flames. The crowd screamed, the wolves howled, but the fire didn't touch her. It obeyed her. Her magic surged through the pyre, splitting the ironwood and snapping the chains that bound him. She caught him as he fell, her hands burning with raw power, her eyes shining like molten gold. "I told you not to come," he rasped, "and I told you I don't listen." She kissed him, in front of the council, in front of gods and ghosts, and the flames around them turned from red to silver. When the light faded, Cale rose beside her, no longer just Alpha, no longer just Wolf. His eyes mirrored hers now, twin golds, touched by magic. "You made me a monster," he whispered. "No," she said. "I made you mine." The lovers stand amid ruin, the council scattered, the old order broken, their powers fused, their hearts bound, there's no turning back. The world has already begun to change, and they are its beginning and its end. Chapter 6. The Descent, All Seems Lost. The storm had not stopped in 7 nights. The sky bled silver and ash over the ruined witch kingdom, and every drop of rain seemed to carry Cale's agony. Tamsin felt it through the dying bond. Each heartbeat that faltered inside him echoed inside her ribs, faint, ragged, fading. The witch bond, once a burning thread of light, was now a trembling ember. She pressed her palm against her chest, trying to feel him. Sometimes she swore she could still taste his breath in the wind. But the bond had gone quiet. The world whispered of his capture. The council had him, the Alpha King, the beast who defied their decrees for a witch. He was being paraded through the Iron Fang Keep like a trophy. The wolves called him traitor, the witches called him fool, and Tamsin called him beloved. She had tried to fight. Gods, she had tried. But the rebellion shattered in one night. Fire and silver rained upon them. The Shadowlands burned. The witches who followed her scattered like leaves before the storm. Now she stood alone among the ruins, a queen without a crown, a witch without hope. The moon hid its face behind the clouds. Even it could not bear witness to her fall. The nights that followed were a fever. She dreamed of Cale's voice, low, broken, wrapped in pain. "Do not come for me," he would whisper in her mind. "Live, Tamsin." But his voice grew fainter each time. She woke to silence, to blood on her lips from biting back screams. The few rebels who remained begged her to flee east, to the marshes where witchfire still burned pure. "Save yourself," they pleaded. But how could she, when her heart beat in another man's chest? Her misbelief, the one she had carried since childhood, whispered cruelly now. Power only brings suffering. She had tried to use it for good, and still, it destroyed everything she loved. The more she reached for her magic, the more it recoiled from her, as if mourning Cale's absence, too. Her spells fizzled to ash. Her strength drained. Even the stars seemed to retreat from her touch. When the messenger arrived, he brought no comfort. The wolves had forced Cale to kneel before the council. They had made him renounce her name under the moon. They had burned his sigil, branded him oathbreaker. He had not screamed, but he had bowed. And the moment his knee hit the stone, the bond between them cracked like glass. Tamsin fell to her knees miles away, choking on air that would no longer fill her lungs. Every heartbeat that wasn't his felt like a lie. The rebels thought her dead. For 3 days she didn't move, didn't speak. Only the wind howled through the ruins. When she finally rose, she was changed. Her face pale as frost, her eyes no longer glowing gold when but obsidian. Her power had gone silent, buried beneath grief. She wandered the Shadowlands, haunted by echoes of him, his scent of cedar and steel, his voice whispering her name in memory. Everywhere she went, the land mirrored her sorrow. Rivers froze, winds stilled, animals bowed their heads as if in mourning. On the 7th night, she reached the edge of the old witch palace, the same halls where her ancestors once ruled, now blackened bones of stone. Inside, she found a single candle still burning, the last flame of her people. Tamsin knelt before it, trembling. She whispered to the void, "I was wrong. Power was never the curse. Fear was." The words cracked something inside her. Tears spilled, real, unrestrained, and with them came warmth. For the first time in moons, she felt Cale. Faint, but there. He was alive. Through the tattered bond, she felt him breathing, barely. His pain washed through her veins. Sharp, heavy, real. "Tamsin." The whisper was like a ghost brushing her ear. "Live. For both of us." And with that final echo, something inside her ignited. The candle before her flared, a roaring column of witchfire that climbed the ceiling. It didn't burn her. It crowned her. Every emotion she had buried, love, rage, grief, hope, became one force. The witch bond rekindled, faint but alive, pulsing with his heartbeat. She rose slowly, her gown of tattered black catching firelight that did not consume. Her hair whipped in the sudden wind. Around her, the palace came alive with ancient power, murals glowing, sigils awakening. Tamsin lifted her hand, and the flames obeyed. For the first time since Kale's capture, her magic did not recoil. It roared for war. Her voice echoed through the ruins, not as a whisper, but a vow. I will not kneel, not to fate, not to kings, not to gods. The storm outside broke. The moon bled white again. By dawn, the Shadowlands were awake. Every witch who had lost hope felt her call burn in their bones. Every wolf who had doubted the Alpha's heart felt his heart beat through the bond that refused to die. The world itself began to stir, a whisper of prophecy reborn. Tamsin walked from the ruins like a queen risen from ashes. Behind her, the witch palace blazed, not with destruction, but with rebirth. The night had not claimed her. It had remade her. And as the wind carried her voice across the mountains, one truth became clear. The Witch Queen still lived, and she was coming for her Alpha. Chapter 7. The Final Push. The world burned in silence. Smoke curled through the ruins of the rebel camp, twisting like dying ghosts in the dawn. Ash clung to Tamsin's skin, but she didn't feel it. She felt him, Kale, far away, broken, still alive. Her heart thrummed with his, faint, flickering, but there. He's not gone, she whispered, her voice cracking. He can't be. Around her, the remnants of her army watched in quiet reverence. Wolves with torn fur, witches with trembling hands. No one dared speak. Because of that bond, because it still pulsed, they knew their queen wasn't done. Tamsin lifted her face to the rising sun, jaw clenched, silver light catching the faint shimmer of witchfire in her irises. Get me the map, she said. We march at dusk. Moments later, the tattered map of the northern range spread across a shattered table. Ironfang Keep gleamed at its center like a wound that refused to heal. It's suicide, someone muttered. So was loving him, she replied. Still, they listened. She laid out her plan, not as a ruler, but as someone with nothing left to lose. Wolves would attack from the eastern ridge, witches from the shadowed river. She'd take the heart herself, the keep's main hall, where the council would gather. Her hands trembled once, but she didn't stop. We don't fight for crowns, she said, her voice low, steady. We fight for freedom, for every witch they burned, for every wolf they chained, for every heartbeat they tried to silence. And just like that, everything changed. The hopeless turned hungry. The broken stood taller. The night itself seemed to listen. That night, beneath a blood-red moon, they marched. Wolves padded through the snow in silence, eyes like coals. Witches whispered spells under their breath, words that tasted of thunder and vengeance. Tamsin walked ahead, cloak whipping behind her. The wind carried his name. Kyle. It was both prayer and promise. Soon after, the first howl split the darkness, a signal. The army surged. Ironfang Keep rose before them, vast and cruel, its towers cutting through fog like black spears. Lightning cracked behind it. The air itself shuddered. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Tamsin lifted her hands. Blue-white witchfire spiraled to life, swirling around her arms. Wolves paused mid-charge, awed. For Kale! Someone shouted. For Tamsin! Another cried. The two names merged into a single roar. Steel met claw. Spell met fang. The battlefield erupted into chaos. Tamsin moved like a storm given flesh. Every strike, every pulse of magic was fueled by him. His pain, his strength, his memory. And for the first time, the witches and wolves didn't fight against each other. They fought as one. In the span of a breath, She shattered the keep's first gate. In the next, she was through the courtyard, spells searing the air. The bond flared. She felt him, closer now, weak but alive. His heartbeat echoed in her ribs like a drum calling her home. "Hold the gates," she shouted. "I'll find him." Inside, shadows stretched long and cold. The halls smelled of blood and silver. Her pulse raced. The bond tugged harder, a magnetic pull through pain and stone. As if summoned, she turned the final corridor and froze. Kale knelt at the center of a ritual circle bound by chains that glowed with runes. The council stood around him, chanting. Their eyes burned white, and at the circle's heart, a swirling sphere of light, their bond. They were severing it. "No," her voice trembled. "Don't you dare." Before either could speak, a council witch turned, sneering. "The witch queen arrives at last." Lightning flared as she raised her staff. Without thinking, Tamsin threw herself forward, magic exploding from her hands. The room erupted in fire and fury. The chains snapped. Kale collapsed, gasping. She was at his side in seconds, hands shaking as she touched his face. His skin burned hot, too hot, but his eyes opened, storm gray and wild. "You shouldn't have come," he rasped. "You should have known I would." The space between them burned. As the silence stretched, their bond reignited, slowly at first, then violently, like a heartbeat clawing its way back to life. The council screamed incantations. Runes blazed. Magic collided. Kyle rose, dragging her with him, eyes darkening to silver fire. "With me," he growled. "Always," she breathed. Together they unleashed it, the full force of the witch bond. Light ripped through the chamber. Wolves howled outside. The sky itself split open. Every lie, every chain, every curse. They burned. When it was over, the keep was silent. Smoke drifted through broken windows. Ash fell like snow. Cal fell to his knees before her, not as king, but as man. His voice was hoarse, trembling, real. "You were never mine to claim," he said. "Only mine to love." Her heart skipped. Tears blurred her vision. She sank beside him, forehead to his. "Then love me," she whispered, "and we'll claim the world together." Outside, dawn broke. The surviving wolves and witches looked up to see their alpha and queen standing hand in hand, light flickering around them like the birth of a new sun. The war was over, but their story, the one written in blood and bond, was only beginning. And as the wind carried his name one last time, the world finally breathed. Chapter 8. The resolution from Tamsin's point of view. The keep burns. Ash and moonlight fall together, a storm of ruin and rebirth. Every heartbeat inside me is not my own. It's his. Kale. The bond thrums like wildfire under my skin, alive again, defying the council's ritual that tried to rip it from us. I taste iron and smoke. I taste him. The council's chamber cracks apart as I enter. Stone bleeding light, sigils unraveling. The elders stand in a circle, chanting the severance spell. And at its center, Kale kneels, bare, broken chains of silver burning into his flesh. "Too late," one of them hisses. "The bond dies with the witch's hope." But they don't understand. Hope is not what fuels me. Love is. And love is older than any spell. I raise my hand. Witchfire blooms, blue, white, and furious. It doesn't hum. It sings. The chamber floods with light, and for one suspended moment, Kale's eyes find mine through the chaos. "Together," he breathes. "Always." The bond flares, a cosmic pulse. My magic surges through him. His wolf fire returns through me. Our energies collide, spiral, become. The world fractures under it. The council screams as the witchfire devours their darkness, their bodies dissolving into ash and silence. And then, stillness. Kale collapses. I fall beside him. My magic dims, my veins alight with the cost. He reaches for me, his hand trembling against my cheek. "You were never mine to claim," he whispers, voice raw, eyes glimmering with everything we've survived. "Only mine to love." Tears slip from my lashes, searing trails down soot-streaked skin. "And I love you enough," I breathe, "to let the world begin again." We stay like that, tangled in ruin and moonlight, as dawn breaches the horizon over Ironfang Keep. The old world dies quietly, and in its ashes, a new one breathes. 1 year later, the Shadowlands are no longer silent. Where once witchlight flickered and faded, now gardens bloom beneath silver moons. Kyle walks beside me, his hand warm around mine, calloused and human. He no longer wears the crown. He carries scars instead. I wear no throne's weight, only peace. Laughter breaks the quiet. A small child runs between us, dark hair wild as wind, wolf eyes gleaming beneath lashes. Blue witchfire dances in their palms as they giggle, scattering light across the grass. I kneel, catching them before they tumble, and they look up at me, Kale's strength in their smile, my magic in their gaze. "The world we bled for," I whisper, watching them chase fireflies. Finally breathes. Kale slips an arm around me, his breath at my ear. "And it breathes our name," he murmurs. As the moon rises high above the reborn lands, I close my eyes and feel the bond. No longer a chain, but a heartbeat. Not power, not destiny. Just love that endures. Forever. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more stories, and also don't forget to hit the like button.